Good morning, Jamie. Jamie, can you do me a favor? Can I get my sunglasses?
Yes.
I realized, and let's see what the motivation is for today.
You're pickled to perfection, just
Hey.
like me.
Thank you. I still haven't given this a name. Most likely I'm going to name this pickle Pierce. This little pickle is named Pierce, spelled with an S, because the C and the S is interchangeable in no sense with my son's name, so it's metaphysically impossible for anyone to confuse it. So this is Pierce with an S, because my son Pierce is a really positive person. He believes in me, and I know he loves me very much. And Drake is an amazing son as well. But the difference between Drake and Pierce is I think that Drake doesn't really believe in his dad as much, and it's okay. And I think that people find themselves extremely confused in times of stress, and they often forget. So, for example, I'm wearing the sunglasses not because of some sort of an ulterior motive, but rather because my eyes hurt when I'm under the lights. These lights are... Ooh. Oh, Jamie, could you do me another huge favor?
Yes.
You know what? I just looked over. I didn't know that you weren't done with the coffee. I thought that I left the coffee in the other room.
Oh, no.
And for anyone that's wondering, look at this. Sun's out, guns out. No, I'm just joking. I am severely overweight, but because of dieting and healthy living, I'm able to change the way I look without putting stress on my heart. I'm not really sure. Yesterday, I was extremely sick. I had food poisoning, and Miss Resnick's health is not something I'm looking to ever discuss on camera, especially while I'm in the formal capacity of being a spokesperson or a, how do I say, I'm not a spokesperson for Ms. Resnick. Ms. Resnick is not the office of the President of the United States, and Ms. Resnick is a human being who needs just a friend. That's it. Human beings who really don't understand that concept are because they don't know how to be friends to other people, not because they don't want to accept the reality that I am neither a lawyer nor do I offer anything in the sense of legal advice. But what I am able to do is I'm able to bypass a lot of the bullshit that most people find themselves having to be the victims of. I also have a lifetime of being an honorable person, so that goes a long way when it comes to reality. Not in the abstract when you look at me on YouTube and choose to judge my performance or the way I act. The reality is very simple. Jamie has the facts on her side. So there are many things I want to say, but I'm going to reserve myself in an organized fashion. So for example, for today's video, what I'm going to do is lay out the outline for the way the format of the videos that come out is, as well as expressing to Ms. Resnick what I believe is the best course of action. So right now, while she's in bankruptcy, I have several legal matters that need to be addressed. It is not possible for me to address those legal matters without roping in her bankruptcy, because I don't have any issues that don't involve non-asset based resolutions. So none of my conflicts, other than the one criminal matter that's left, and when I say criminal, I say it in I say it with a serious face because I believe that the rules and the law are serious, but I want to laugh in the face of human beings who believe that they actually will have other human beings believe that a human like me, who has not committed a single crime of harassment or the likes of anything his entire life, would just wake up one day and start committing crime after crime, like in the movies where a human being loses their mind and starts to just commit crime after crime to a point where they need to be institutionalized. I've heard with my own ears people say that I am completely insane after the same people took my children and home away from me, and not only have been laughing at me in outside of the courthouse when before we go in or out of the courthouse, I'm mocked, ridiculed, and laughed at. And then inside of the courthouse, that very same person pretends to be a victim. Does that make any sense?
100%.
It is, not only is it illegal, it is beyond comprehension that I do not believe that anyone that is watching this that is a man would be able to maintain their sanity going through what I went through.
No.
What I want to express to everyone is very simple. Ms. Resnick has liabilities and she has assets. That's the balance that needs to be achieved. There are creditors and there are debitors or debtors in her bankruptcy. There are legitimate human beings that may or may not be owed a very slight amount of money based on the over expenditure of her life savings and the under the law. It does not apply to criminals who have stolen money from Jamie. So she, by facto of her job of working for Dan Reeses, people not inadvertently but purposefully stole money from her in the anticipation that her claims would be ignored by virtue of her association with me. So the short end of it is basically every single human being that robbed me actually robbed Jamie as well. And that will all be brought out in a one-by-one fashion. So for example, we're going to start with some of the basic shit and go one at a time. So human beings, for example, if there's a debt that's associated with it and there's an attorney that knows what's going on, that attorney is going to be roped in, a motion will be filed, but we don't have the time or the ability to drag every single person through. So it'll be done in bunches based on the way Miss Resnick wants to do it. So before this video started, she expressed to me, this is the way I want to do it. This is how I want you to say it. That's how I would like it to be done. So this isn't my idea, but because of my directness, my stern leadership style, as well as my ability to speak directly, not indirectly, but directly into the camera and express the validity of the claims, I got the job. So,
Exactly.
what?
You were the right guy for the job.
Okay, so for example, every single day, we're gonna try to go through chunks of the actual claims. So for example, there are crossover claims. Crossover claims are when it deals with a matter. So for example, let's say that Miss Resnick is being accused of something in a criminal court. Well, the evidence of that needs to be brought into the bankruptcy court in order to show that the reality of a human being being able to address debt while dealing with a mountain of litigation that's frivolous is not only not realistic, it is the core reason for why Ms. Resnick filed for protection. She didn't file for protection because she overspent or she's lazy or a drug addict or any of those things. That's actually a complete opposite. As a matter of fact, one of the core reasons of her filing is because of what happened in the first two bankruptcies. You see, Ms. Resnick chose equity versus an income. And the reason for that is because she relies very heavily on the federal government, the laws and the rules. She was married to an attorney. She spent her whole life working for law firms. At no time does a human being who is told that the law applies to everyone and we are all under the same umbrella. She worked for law firms that explicitly represented clients in bankruptcy and were paid handsomely for those services. That set of circumstances is the very reason why she has worked endlessly for the last 6 years for a job that she gets laughed at for saying that she works for free. She doesn't work for free.
Exactly.
She works for a percentage of real estate that I already own. It is not for free. I don't need to go and buy buildings. I don't need to raise money to fund a business, which I will do. But the entire essence of where we go from step one is that we're only going to go past the point of what is manageable. It is virtually impossible to lay mountains of issues and paperwork on a court system that is directly responsible for a big chunk of it. I want to remind everyone about Mr. Richard Trank, Anthony Sedano, and the insanity of the Chapter 7 and Chapter 11 bankruptcy that led to this insanity. And as you can see, that there's no actual end in sight unless the US government is ready to finally end this bullshit, give me my money, and let everybody move on with their lives. If they're not, they have to then do their jobs in both law enforcement and criminal justice / court, not in bankruptcy court. The endless cycle of human beings who try to use my non-law degree, meaning I'm not a lawyer, I get it, but that doesn't mean I'm a moron. And human beings who can't understand that when they say to me things like, Mr. Reeses, bankruptcy court is not the venue for criminal adjudication. I say to them, Your Honor, how does a human being go through bankruptcy without identifying that, one, they are a victim of a crime, and two, that law enforcement has multiplied the effect of the crime by ignoring it and supporting the people that are the criminals, meaning like law enforcement has a huge part to do with all of this. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about an estate that started on the low end at $82 million, at the point of when I was kicked out of my own house. So like in court, I am being accused of living with Miss Resnick while being kicked out of my own house.
Exactly.
And being prevented from coming home. So this is all done by this guy, Matthew Smorrow, who is committing crimes on a daily basis, basically, and no one cares. But when you're dealing with people that actually believe that in a year, 2 years, the things that they're doing, I'm just going to be like, yeah, that's no problem. They don't really understand what they're doing. It's just digging themselves deeper by longer or prolonging the amount of time that the crime that they have committed has taken place. Please remember that eventually the people that are involved in this will be judged and their sentence will be determined based on the amount of damage they did. So for example, when there is almost a year of YouTube videos where I'm expressing the mental anguish and sadness of being illegally separated from my children, Ms. Resnick has the same circumstances. This is all done because of a word. The word is perjury. Had perjury not happened in the courts, none of this would be plausible. There would be no actual reason for anyone in any court whatsoever to hurt me, Ms. Resnick, or our children. So when we go back into the concept of bankruptcy not being part of the experience, how does a human being who is facing false arrests be able to mitigate and circumnavigate the complex world of earning an income when you can Google their name, and if you're in a law firm, you won't hire her because she is facing criminal charges. So until those criminal charges have been resolved, she doesn't have the ability to even earn an income. So when you talk about human beings that can't earn an income and bankruptcy not being valid, it is you, a judge or anyone that has to do with bankruptcy court, that is ignorant to not identify that the criminal aspect of a human being's life, who is not a criminal, is a very big deal. When you're dealing with humans that are criminals and they're facing criminal charges as a direct result of running a nonprofit that's a scam, or maybe even, a finance company, or maybe a brokerage house or something like that. So they're dealing with criminal penalties and they have to deal with bankruptcy because their bankruptcy is a direct result of their fraud. Ms. Resnick doesn't really always understand that she did nothing wrong. So she finds herself being a human being like everyone else, following the rules and laws. So she is constantly being bullied by human beings that are taking advantage of the fact that she is scared. When a human being is scared, they don't understand the choices that they have are not limited just for what the bullies want them to choose. That's how fear works. Fear works by eliminating the reality of choice and making people believe that they don't have a choice. They believe that because of the circumstances that are created by an alternate or exterior force, most of the time the fear in people's minds created by themselves.
Yeah.
And other people just simply take advantage of it. They don't actually create the fear. It's very difficult to create something that doesn't exist in someone's mind and continue to maintain it, so that the longer time passes and the actuality of the fear doesn't manifest itself, a regular mind would not be afraid of something that didn't happen. So maybe it's a little complicated, maybe not. I want to end this video by telling everyone that I went out of my way to really express to everyone that I wanted to start my book of Daniel with one of my first images that I wanted to show when I got to the point where I realized that, all right, at this point in my life, if I were to pass away, my wife was able to be at a point where I knew she was going to have a child that was going to pass my DNA along, and that's a big milestone when you think about the reality of what you bring to the world. So in the same context, I had a friend, his name is Scott Levenberg. He's still alive. His name is Scott Daniel Levenberg. Great guy, the best actually. And he is one of those human beings that I not only saved his life dozens of times, but the story that I'm going to tell you requires you to look at the images and really understand that it is one of those stories that what I'm going to do is I'm going to be nice and quiet when I show you the images, and then I'll tell you the story in the second part, because this is nothing more than good morning. And and the other videos that I want to express to everyone is, when I look at my photo burst, I do not put photos up that I believe are embarrassing or negative. So like, there's a lot of photos that are like, maybe somebody makes a face or something like that. I really go out of my way that no matter who the person is, I want to remind the boys that are watching this that I love their mom. I'm not the kind of person that's interested in negative content. And I can't prove that more than by showing the reality and expressing to everyone, hey, my life is extremely complicated. There are some people that really benefit from that, and other people benefit more from it. I am the only person that suffers from this quagmire, complexity, paradox, whatever you want to call it, that I have personally created. The issue that I face is very much solvable if people can look in the mirror. But until they're able to do that, it is virtually impossible. So right now it's exactly 10 o'clock and I'm going to say goodbye, and I will then take a 5-minute break, and then I will create 5 to 10 minute videos that will be then disseminated and broadcast to each and every creditor or issue based on the way Ms. Resnick schedules it. So if there's like 5 people that owe money that have to do with one type of creditor, they'll all be listed in one type of format, and then everything that is done via video is then disseminated via proper filings. So do you have any
Excellent.
questions?
That's great. No, I just wrote that down. I love that. I think that's so smart. 5 to 10 minute video for each.
Well, that one is my idea, but I want to remind everyone that the actual the request was yours, correct?
It was, yes, but I love how you broke that down.
Well, like you can't work for 12 hours a day. So I work 12 hours a day. I make Ms. Resnick work about 8 to 9 hours a day. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not running on a treadmill. I'm not sending emails out. I use my brain a lot of the time. Sometimes I have to film content. I recognize that I've just spent about more than half a decade being laughed at, while at the same time helping hundreds of millions of people over and over again. That's in the past. I don't have an issue with anyone, especially because the people that have hurt me and my children, that in itself is worse than anything that I can possibly ever say or do. If you're a good person. If you're a bad person, why would I even care what your opinion is? So it's a self-fulfilled prophecy that resolves itself in reverse and forward. My name is Dan Reeses, and Ms. Resnick, do you have anything else you want to say?
No, but thank you so much for being on my team. I appreciate the support.
I often say things like I never had a choice, but the reality is I did have a choice, and I choose to be a good guy who is above all of this and has manifested the truth over time, and withstanding the test of time is the true sentiment. So for example, Miss Resnick's health has significantly improved. My mental health and my physical health has skyrocketed. And when you look at the reality of what's going on Team Not Dan, please give yourselves a little bit of credit if you have a little bit of suspicion that something is not right. Because I am not okay with even the people that I used to love more than anything having even a hair on their head hurt. Because my boys are the most important thing in the world to me. And I can't keep expressing it because I sound like a psychopath. And I know this. But please understand that if being a loving father that is dying inside from being separated from his children illegally is the definition of a psychopath, then I hope my picture looks good on the first page.